This is my presentation on recency bias and baseball fans. It's a simple fact. People need connection to survive and thrive in life. In his reflective essay titled False Nostalgia, Johan Norberg says that anchoring our identity in something enduring helps us when all that is solid seems to be melting into air. Everything changes, but we need a sense of stability and predictability. Many people find this connection in others, friends, family, or confidants. Others find this connection in a religion. Still others find this connection falsely in drugs or alcohol. Many people, on the other hand, find this deep connection in a sports team. Dr. Daniel Wan, a psychologist at the University of Murray State, says that by being a fan of a particular team or a sport or even a player, it gives that individual the opportunity to feel a sense of belongingness. We are very social creatures. Affiliation is certainly born in us through evolution, and one thing that fandom allows people to do is get in a part of these groups. Fans find a sense of belongingness in rooting for their team, empathizing with the players, and hanging out with other fans. Additionally, fans get so attached to their team that Eric Simmons says that fans subconsciously think that they're actually a part of their team. In his book, The Secret Lives of Sports Fans, when he describes the passion that fans feel, he says that when fans use we or us instead of they or them when describing their team, it is not simply an annoying habit. It is instead something that fans feel psychologically that makes them think they're actually a part of the team. Some effects of this emotional attachment include a decline in mental health, which is described by Shirley Wang, who also describes the immense passion that sports fans can feel. When their team loses, their self-esteem can go down, and this can lead to a decline in mental health in many ways. Additionally, superstitions can pop up in sports fans, as they want their team to win so badly they will do anything they can to feel like they helped the team win. I see this in my own family, as we will often connect whether or not we win with whether or not we watch the game with whether or not our team plays well. Additionally, this extreme emotional attachment can lead to recency bias and overestimation in their team's ability. This often manifests itself in the ticketing world. Wansonk Frank G. and colleagues found that fans often are more likely to buy tickets because of their emotional attachment and overestimation they have for their team's ability. They say that a sports fan's high involvement with their team did in fact result in an overestimation of risk perceptions in the pre-sale ticketing environment, and this relationship was partly mediated by the consumer's overconfidence. Fans day in and day out think that their team will be able to perform well, and this is what drives the ticketing business, is they constantly buy tickets to go watch their team play in person. This also manifests itself in memorabilia purchases. Recently, a baseball card of Paul Skeens, one of the most hyped young baseball prospects of all time, sold for $1.11 million. This is insane because the card has a piece of his jersey in it and his signature, and it's really just a piece of cardboard. And a fan was willing to pay more money for the card than the owner will pay for the services of the actual player, as Paul Skeens' salary is only $875,000. This brings me to recency bias. Dr. Adam Hayes, who got his PhD in sociology from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, describes recency bias as the tendency for people to overweight new information or events without considering the objective probabilities of those events over the long run. Sam Blum of The Athletic examines the recency bias that is present in Angels fans as they go into the 2025 season. Although the Angels have had a very tough going in the last few years, as they have not had a winning season in nearly a decade, their fans are still optimistic because of the offseason additions that they had over the season. Because the most recent losses of the Angels were 4 or 5 months ago, they value the offseason additions of a couple solid players that were only 1 or 2 months ago, as the fans and owners have recency bias that is present in them. So they value the offseason additions over last year's losses. During the season, Mark Arakaki found that recency bias was also present in fans because they amplify the wins and ignore the losses of their team. They ignore the losses rather than defending them, and they cite the wins of their team as their rationale. This brings me to the problems with recency bias. Recency bias can negatively affect legacy discussions in players, contract decisions, and overall fan perception. One example of how recency bias has affected contract negotiations was in Sam Darnold, as he had a great season last year and was a revelation for the Minnesota Vikings. However, he and the Vikings faltered in the playoffs, and he has had trouble in contract negotiations because fans and owners are more focused on his more recent playoff falters. Additionally, the debate of Shohei Ohtani versus Babe Ruth shows how recency bias impacts legacy discussions, as many people will cite Babe Ruth playing nearly 100 years earlier as the reason why he is not as good as Shohei Ohtani, who plays in the present day. However, all hope may not be lost for recency bias in sports. Although it is ever present in fans and in the culture of sports, some solutions include documentaries and stats that include era adjustments. One documentary that has done a good job of combating recency bias was The Comeback, about the 2004 Boston Red Sox. It described their amazing playoff run and all the amazing feats they had to accomplish to break the curse of the Bambino and win the World Series in 2004. This spread awareness about the amazing feats of the past and showed how not all teams in the modern day are amazing just because they play now. Additionally, era-adjusted stats such as ERA plus and weighted runs created plus account for the different situations and stadiums that players have to face. So when simply comparing stats between two players, one can better distinguish between who is better between modern and older players. Although neither of these solutions are foolproof and they're both in their infant stages, if a concerted effort is made to improve these solutions and to come up with new solutions, recency bias can be combated. Although it could never be eradicated, as it is ever present as a fallacy and a bias in all fans. And this is my bibliography. Thank you.
Terrific. Thanks, Connor. I have a couple of questions for you.
Yes.
And then you'll be all done. So for the first one, did your research end up going in a different direction than you originally expected when you started this project? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I originally was thinking that I was just going to talk about like recency bias and really connect that to false nostalgia, but I found that recency bias is not simply just like a fallacy among fans, and it's more so due to emotional attachment. So when I first started my research, I didn't think about emotional attachment at all in fans, but that became like a huge part of my argument because it is so present in fans, and it really plays a huge role in everything that a fan goes through when rooting for their team.
And then as a follow-up to that, what additional questions emerged from your research? Are any of these important questions?
Yeah, I would say, is there any way to combat recency bias like effectively? Because there have, like I described, there have been documentaries that have come out, but there's still recency bias across all sports. And really the biggest question for me was, could it ever be eradicated? And I kind of came away with no, and then along with that, I came away with like, what could that mean for the future if it's not eradicated? Like, could that be a huge threat to sports, or is it something that we can live with?
Terrific. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.